Discover the best in local business news with a subscription to the IBJ and Inside Indiana Business. For a limited time, try us out for just $1 a week for 8 weeks. Claim this limited time offer now at ibj.com/trial offer.
This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the afternoon of Thursday, April 30th, 2026. I'm Alex Brown. Brothers Brad and Carrie Gutwine acquired Copper Moon Coffee in 2007 and have grown the roastery into a 160,000 square foot operation in Lafayette that employs about 160 people. Over the past 6 years, the company has quietly invested more than $90,000 to support space education through a partnership with the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. Brad Gutwine.
We wanted to associate a good theme with our brand, and it just seemed so logical that with the name Copper Moon, that we would associate ourselves with one of the most amazing things going on in our nation's exploration of space. It just seemed like a very logical brand identity.
The funding provided by Copper Moon supports students pursuing careers in STEM, even if they aren't necessarily related to space. Goshen-based Interra Credit Union has entered into an agreement to acquire the Hicksville Bank in an all-cash transaction. Under the deal, Interra will purchase substantially all assets and liabilities of the Ohio-based bank, though financial terms were not disclosed. Eli Lilly and Company reported first quarter results today with revenue of $19.8 billion, up 56% from the same quarter a year ago, driven by the company's weight loss and diabetes medications Mounjaro and Zepbound. The company reported profit of $7.4 billion for the quarter, up from $2.8 billion a year ago. From the number one source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Indiana, start your engines. Join us from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for our Emmy Award-winning Business at the Brickyard, presented by LiUNA. All month long, we'll bring you exclusive interviews, features, and a behind-the-scenes look at how the business of motorsports and racing drive the Indiana economy. Business at the Brickyard. It's front row access you won't want to miss.
Indiana will end a statewide HIV outreach and testing program this summer after health officials say a drop in federal pandemic relief dollars forced them to scale back services. IIB's Aubriana Herron has more.
Indiana's Special Population Support Program, which provides HIV testing, counseling, and support services in addiction treatment settings, will sunset June 30th, according to the State Department of Health. The decision follows a $6.7 million reduction over 2 years in Federal American Rescue Plan Act funding that had supported the program. IDOH spokesperson Lisa Welch said health officials opted to prioritize other services. She noted that the agency reviewed programs with particular emphasis on the identification of new HIV cases and ultimately chose to prioritize disease intervention specialists, or DIS, public health staff who conduct testing, notify partners of potential exposure, and help connect people to care. The cuts affect multiple organizations across the state, including the Indianapolis Urban League, Aspire Indiana Health, IU Health, and several local health departments and HIV service providers. State data shows staff funded by the program conducted more than 17,600 HIV tests between 2021 and 2025, including a peak of 4,575 tests in 2024 alone. More than 112,000 HIV tests were conducted statewide during that period. Because many tests were anonymous, Welch said state health officials can't determine how many individual Hoosiers were served. Advocates and service providers say the loss of the program could create gaps in early detection, a key component to HIV prevention. Aubriana Herron, Inside Indiana Business Radio.
The Seymour Common Council this month has approved 10-year tax abatements for 5 companies that are planning expansions in the city. The Jackson County Industrial Development Corporation said this week that the projects represent a total of $164 million in investment and the creation of more than 60 jobs. The companies making the investments are Walmart, ASIN USA, Cummins, Vallejo, and SpaceGuard Products. You can learn more about each project at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. A surgery center in Noblesville is calling new artificial intelligence technology that tracks patients through their surgical journey a game changer. The Indiana Orthopedic Institute is using a patient tracking system called Ospitec to streamline the patient's journey and clinicians' workflow, which founder Michael Meneghini says creates multiple benefits.
Ospitec allows us to not have to hire as many staff to do the same thing. The second thing is that it's a pretty low-cost technology and allows us to improve our financial metrics here, which are efficiency, which helps drive down cost and operating expenses.
The patients wear an AI-enabled bracelet that tracks them wherever they are in the surgical process, giving nurses more time for in-person interactions instead of inputting data. Dr. Manasa Mantravati is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports and entertainment, and beyond. Available now on the IBJ Media app or your favorite podcast provider. I'm Alex Brown for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.
Whether it's healthcare innovation, major infrastructure, or global sports impact, Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick tells the stories of Indiana's groundbreakers and game changers. It's the must-listen show for business, civic, and community leaders across the state. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcasts or at ibjpodcast.com.
Do you want to know what really drives change in Indiana? You won't find it in sound bites, you'll find it in stories. Stories from CEOs, lawyers, coaches, entrepreneurs, and community advocates. That's the IBJ Media Podcast Network. Insightful, local, impactful. Find all of our shows by searching IBJ Media in your podcast app or visit ibjpodcast.com.